I want to make a video on the this idea of I mentioned this thing like I call it the white space in a video I made very early on. And I want to talk about these barriers and these the bumping, the boundaries, the things along those lines that control our space around us and how we can understand that a wall is a wall. I can say I'm stuck in a room. I can understand there's a boundary there. There's only empty space controlling where all these things go. But obviously, like many people understand, we're more empty space ourselves. We're more water weight. We're more water than we are actual flesh because you wring all the flesh out of the the meat, then all of a sudden all the flesh, all the blood, all that stuff, you're more water. Sort of like we're more empty space than we are meat, or we are anything, or we're more empty space than we are filled space. And in like many cases, there's these boundaries, and there's only space in between these boundaries for us to move around in. And this space, like grass on the ground, like carpet on the floor, like on the concrete on the road, it can be changed. It's infinitely, well, not obviously not really, but it's changeable. And it can be changed. It can be, you can have one thing 1 minute. I mean, just as simple, something as simple as lighting. Do we really know what we really look like unless the lighting is exactly the way it's supposed to be? The way something changes is based off of day and night. The difference between light and dark, how light reflects off of objects can change drastically. So you never really are in the same place. The Earth's moving around and it's spinning around and rotating around, rotating and spinning around. The sun, it's facing the sun, then it's not facing the sun in different ways at different times. It's never fully pointing at the same exact point in time or point in space in any given moment. A year from now, it's not going to be in the exact same spot it was a year ago. It's going to be constantly changing. Sort of like the boundaries around us are constantly, infinitely changeable. Things are constantly changing as well. Um, and there's only so much we can do to control that, sort of like the same along those same lines as um, things, like day and night, like I mentioned, and how that can change the way you perceive something. Um, in many cases, I'd say a good example is walking out of a movie theater or, watching a movie, and all of a sudden the movie or whatever you were watching or perceiving beforehand changes your perception, and all of a sudden your sense of scope or your sense of um, direction changes. And sometimes, say you're traveling down a highway or something, you know you're going south, but you can perceive yourself as going on the other opposite side of the highway just based on a simple perceptual change. But in many cases, our brain can get in the way and say, oh, obviously I know I'm traveling this instead of that, or north instead of south, but you can perceive it the other way just by changing a slight difference in perception. And I would say in many cases, this is something I've experienced myself in many cases, and I've been aware of this, and I can understand I can change it on the spot. And it's and I mean the control is nice, but in many cases feels like you have so much control, and I've mentioned this in other videos before. The control that you have over a specific circumstance makes you feel like if you have so much control, what's to say that you can't just change anything at any time? And that change that you feel like you have control over almost seems like a lack of control over the understanding and the comfort that you have in a reality of being subservient to some kind of reality that's controlling you. Because sometimes too much control you feel like you have makes it feel like there's no meaning. There's no oppression that's holding you down, that's giving you a driving force. And the more choice you have, generally speaking, the better you're off. And the better you're off, the less there's to fight for. Therefore, there's less of a meaning for you to fight for. Obviously, in many cases, that can be chalked down to something perceptual, but it's something that's true. And I think in many cases, the more choice you have, the better off you are. The more choices you have, the more likely you're not going to have that subservient feeling of reality that gives you some kind of meaning to reality. I mean, I think this is something we all, at least subconsciously, recognize. It's just a matter of understanding it and consciously recognizing it and being able to explain it, getting it across, and accomplish something that means something using this knowledge and recognizing that maybe this life game isn't as all it's chalked up to be, because if I can change things like this on the spot, what's to say that what's to say preventing anything that means much of anything from changing? What's to say that any number of things can just obviously what it's really saying is not much of anything means much of anything if it's so easily changeable, sort of like the matter in your head, the gray matter in your head, it shows that it doesn't have much innate value in and of itself, other than the value that it has based on being a sentient being. But the thing is the sentient being isn't controlling the reality. The reality is controlling the sentient being, and we're under the control of this, regardless. Um, Things are going to happen to us. We are malleable. The thing is within that boundary of malleability being controlled by the environment in reaction to it, our psychological reactions, our brain is only reacting in a certain way to outside stimulus, and that's all we're doing. And how you react, there's certain predispositions, but those are based on other interactions that happen, say, to control your genetics or whatever it is, based on other environmental factors that control you and the interaction that has no effect beforehand on a conscious being, and the conscious being then all of a sudden, after all these other, predispositions interactions happen, you're having an interaction with the environment. That's how you react based on your predisposition and interaction based off of the predisposition is based off of interaction, and your interaction with the environment is based off your predisposition of interaction here and reacting with the environment. That's how you're reacting, is this interaction. So yeah, back to the malleability thing. We're not controlling the environment. The environment's controlling us, but still there's a distinction we made that obviously the more choice you have, the better things off are. That that's why so many rich and famous people obviously lose control. But in many cases, I wouldn't say it's obviously understanding reality, because they don't. I know that. It's just a matter of subconscious, and I think in many cases people can subconsciously recognize this stuff and experience it, but they don't consciously recognize it. In many cases, I wouldn't even say many people even subconsciously. I mean, I don't even know where I'm going with this. Honestly, I don't think many people consciously recognize it. They just intellectually understand it, and they experience, say, mood swings more than anything. And they can attribute these two conflicting or irrelevant ideas that have nothing to do with each other, although they do, but not really, of having an anger problem and applying that to your intellectual understanding of life having some kind of meaninglessness or futility. You're angry, you intellectually understand that life's futile, and the thing that you're angry is futile, and all of a sudden you conflate those two things and make them seem like they're one. In reality, it's not one. In many cases, many people that seem like they know what they're talking about don't really understand what they're talking about, and they conflate their anger and their separate intellectual understanding of what's really going on and the futility, but they don't really perceptually, even subconsciously, or whatever distinction you want to make, or consciously understand exactly what's going on. They don't understand exactly what's going on. They don't understand. They have a specialized knowledge, intellectual knowledge. I'd say a perceptual knowledge of reality is you know exactly what's going on. I say generalized knowledge of reality shows that you are good at logic, you're good at recognizing reality for what it is, at face value. You can see things deductively, inductively, you can see things, recognize things exactly for what they are as best you can. And it's about a logical understanding of reality and that effect that it has on you. And I see a generalized knowledge is something that's just as important, if not more important, than a specialized knowledge. Specialized knowledge, you're specialized in knowing meteorology, but you're not really, that's all you could be logical in that, right? But that doesn't mean that you're going to be logical and something else. You're logical understanding this. You can deductively understand this means this and this, and it can help you in other things. It can be a training mechanism, but generally speaking, I would say that it's not always something that's going to help you, and it's because you have a specialized knowledge. You happen to have had a predisposition to let you understand something. That doesn't mean that you're good at understanding everything because you seem, say, logical and perceptual. You understand a certain idea. You have a sixth sense on this subject. You're good at fortune telling or whatever it may be. Doesn't mean that you understand something, generally speaking. And I'd say, generally speaking, there's a general intelligence and there's a specialized intelligence you have for specific things. You can, contrive little groups of what you can find meteorology, like things like little contrived little groups, like you can say art, weather, this, that, and the other thing, and you can say you're good at these things or the other thing. That doesn't change the fact that it's specialized knowledge more than anything. It's not anything else. Yeah. So it's generalized knowledge, and that's, I mean, generalized perceptual intelligence, and I think perception is more intelligence than, say, knowledge. Because your perception and recognition of what's going on is more important than your ability to regurgitate what's actually going on. That's obviously a good measurement, but I think your understanding um, is a better weight or a better indication of intelligence than your ability to articulate or intellectually understand. So if you perceptually understand life sucks and you suffer with it, you understand that, I think you're more intelligent than a person that can regurgitate a book or regurgitate knowledge they learned, or knowledge that they have innately. They're good at piano, or you're good, yeah, but you're stupid otherwise. I don't care if you can play piano, or you can do this, or you can do that. You're intelligent this way. You know a lot about arithmetic, but you're stupid, generally speaking. You know this and you know that. That's why in many cases, like, well, this person seems smart. Oh, that's right, because they're smart in math. They're not smart in understanding reality. That's right. And they're too emotional anyway, so obviously that predisposition doesn't help them either. So obviously that's another good way of looking at it. Um, so yeah. So yeah, I'll go on to this, um, the other subject I wanted to go into in this video. But honestly, I think that's a good video in and of itself. I was going to talk about the boundaries, but I guess it turned into a perceptual understanding and generalized intelligence understanding of reality. And I think that's always a good way of making these videos, because you never know what you're going to get out of these videos. So I think I might actually change it to the next video. I think that might be useful, because I want to make 6 videos tonight. And I only had 5 ideas written down, so I think that's good. So I can kind of just add that one to the list, right? So and anyway, so on and so forth and such. Um, uh, um, uh. Yeah, so I think that's a good subject. Don't you think? I think it was a good subject. Okay, thumbs up. No, maybe not. I don't know. Um, Comfort in front of the camera. We can talk about being more comfortable in front of the camera. Obviously, I'm getting a little more relaxed in front of the camera. And that's pretty interesting too, right? Um, so yeah. Anyhow, anyhow, anyhow. Yes. So generalized intelligence versus a specialized intelligence. There are distinctions, and that's why in many cases a person can destroy you in understanding this. But I think in many cases you can fight back at least um, with you can have a fighting chance in an argument with someone that has specialized knowledge if you have enough generalized street smart. It's not really that. I wouldn't say that. I mean, just perceptual understanding of reality. Having your perception be the thing that controls your understanding. You're subconsciously perceptually understand something before you um, consciously. You don't necessarily always recognize the thing that your brain is telling you is going on until you consciously, something ticks or something, something comes along and informs you of, oh, that's why I was understanding this or perceiving this way. Then you can put words to it and you can understand it. Sometimes you find these complicated ideas that you can't necessarily just explain, sort of like, putting meaning behind the beginning, what happened before the universe, or you put ideas like that along the lines of describing these subconscious thought processes and what's going on. Sometimes something just needs to click, a light bulb needs to go off. Someone needs to say something for you to recognize a simple interaction. That's all it needs to be, is before you understand something. And you'll consciously understand something beforehand. And I think that goes back to the original point I was making, is the subconscious understanding, the perceptual understanding, which I would say in many cases is our subconscious understanding, our perception, or at least an aspect of our subconscious understanding, or vice versa, is I'll let the phone ring, is important in its own way, I suppose, but I'd say our perception, God damn, that's distracting. Our perception is a better indication of our intelligence than, I say, our specialized knowledge that we say intellectually understand more than anything else. So I'd say that's more important than saying going to school and um, learning something about, like I mentioned before, any kind of specialized knowledge, art, history, whatever it is. it's a better indication. You like, like school. God damn, that's distracting. Sort of like school. It's a good way of measuring how you learn in an environment. I mean, Einstein's a good example of that. Einstein's a good example of a person that learned something, but he didn't do so good in school, but then he ended up being a genius outside of school, and he became um, an intellectual, and he became the most famous physicist on the planet in history. So, I mean, that's one of the things that happens. It's a good indication of environmental learning, an environment based on specific circumstances, but left to your own devices, it's easy to understand certain things. So, yeah, I mean, that's all I think I need to mention. So, thank you, and until next time, thank you.